Meltdowns before homework, silent shutdowns before school. If you ever found yourself wondering, why is my child reacting so big and overtly about something seemingly so small? You are not alone. Today we are unpacking emotional regulation. Not just what it is, but how we can effectively support your child in understanding and regulating their own emotions. This is going to be more than just calming a tantrum or getting through a morning routine. It's going to be about helping your child build skills that will serve them for their entire life. Tools for resilience. And don't worry, you don't need a psychology degree or a Zen monk kind of vibe to carry this out or to help your child regulate their emotions. I'm here to walk you through the science and the small actionable steps that you can take, even if you're tired, juggling 5 different things, or feeling like you're holding on by the seat of your pants yourself. As today is quite a jam-packed session, I'm going to be pausing at different times and encouraging you to jot things down or to pause the episode and reflect and see if it's something that you want to maybe embed into your everyday life. So just be aware that there will be quite a bit of information today, but there's also going to be some gentle reminders to pause and take it at your own pace. I love that sound. If you haven't already, make sure you grab yourself a really nice drink, whether it's water or coffee or matcha or tea, and your pen and paper so we can dive into this week's episode of the Mindful Toolbox. I want to share a quick story with you to help set this stage. I was working with one of our students, let's call him Jake. This student was 10 years old. He was bright and athletic and really did enjoy putting himself out there in a variety of different aspects, whether it was academically or in a school play. He really did enjoy being a participant. However, he had some very deep-seated anxiety, especially when it came to maths. And so this is how his anxiety would show up. And let me know if this is how your child's anxiety shows up as well. We would be working on a new maths concept, and I would present it to him. And the moment he saw that it was either something slightly outside of his comfort zone or something new, he would shut down completely. He would push the worksheet away or stand up and walk out of the room, refusing to give it a go. Sometimes I would see a little tear. Sometimes he would just go completely silent. The longer that we worked together, he had to change his tactic quite a bit. And so sometimes we would even have a comedian join us at the table. Now, this was really early on in my transition from the classroom into being a professional tutor. So this was probably 8 or 9 years ago. And my focus was the academics because that's what I was hired for, so it made sense. But very quickly, the reality of it became clear. Jake didn't need another times table drill. What he needed, what he desperately needed that would serve him beyond our academic tutoring sessions was tools to stay present in the moment, especially when it was difficult. So together, we opened up a conversation and I said, look, Jake, we're not actually going to do maths today. Instead, we're going to talk about our feelings and our emotions because I've noticed that working on math doesn't bring out the best in you. You are this brilliant, lively, fun child. But the moment we get into something difficult, I see a very different side of you. He nodded in agreement, looking a little sheepish. So I continued. Now, what you're feeling, I think I may know what it is. Should we maybe start drawing what it is that you're feeling? After this activity, something beautiful came from it. It's what I now called the wave theory. And essentially it goes like this. Emotions are like waves. They rise, they peak, they crash, and then they pass. And so because we had this visual and we highlighted that feelings and emotions fade away, they don't need to stay there for us, we were able to practice riding that wave, that emotion. And what we noticed was when we went back to looking at our math lesson, whenever he started to feel a little bit anxious or overwhelmed, he would start to whisper, "I'm just on a wave." Or we had this really beautiful picture of a wave that he drew. And if I started to see that he was shutting down or not necessarily approaching it with resilience, I'd point to the wave as a very gentle reminder that says, "I see you. I see that you're stuck. Here's the wave." And it meant that he felt validated in his experience. We took a big deep breath together and we moved forward. And slowly, let me tell you, it was not overnight. But slowly, he stopped giving up after one wrong question. He began noticing his feelings and rode the wave of them, noticing how they were able to pass quicker if he just accepted that they were there. That small shift changed everything for Jake. And as an extension, for the entire family dynamic as well. Because as you can imagine, when a child is feeling resistant to failure, when the learning curve feels incredibly personal and creates a sense of shame or discomfort, even doing things in the home or with their family may feel a little bit triggering, like playing and losing a board game, or doing a chore that feels a little bit complex or a little bit beyond their reach and they don't want to ask for instructions or how to do it. By finding out this seemingly so small ability to acknowledge the feeling, let it go, and move forward, the entire family dynamic shifted too. And as a result, Jake went on to attend not only his favorite school, but I have heard from his family since, and he has passed all of his GCSEs and is enrolled at a university program that he is very much excited to achieve. Okay, so let's get some definitions down. What is emotional regulation? Like, it's become such a big buzzword in the last year, especially. On the Bettering Youth website, we wrote a blog, I think, in 2022 about ways that parents can support emotional literacy and emotional regulation for their children. And that blog is still one of our top performing blogs that we've ever had. And we have over 120 blogs. So it is an important tool that parents desperately want to build with their child, and so we are going to break it down by starting with the definition. Basically, emotional regulation is the ability to feel the feeling and have the space and awareness and connection to your body to choose what to do with that input. So last episode, when we were talking about anxiety and what it is, we talked about naming it to tame it, and how when we name an emotion, we create a dissociation between us and the emotion. So I am not anxious, I am feeling anxious. And when I say I am feeling anxious, it then empowers me to make another choice. What other label do I want to step into? What other feeling do I want to lean into? But let's make this incredibly clear. It's not about stopping emotions or only wanting to feel quote unquote good emotions, because emotions is feedback, it's information for us in our body. All emotions and feelings serve a real big purpose for us. But we don't have to sit and allow a specific emotion to derail plans or stop us from doing something. We're allowed, once we become confident with regulation, to choose another option. And that is what emotional regulation is all about. It's teaching children, and let's be honest, ourselves too, because this is not something that I was taught. Don't know about you, but this is something that I've had to teach myself. And so it's something that we can add to our toolbox to help us navigate a stressful situation. Okay, so you know that I'm a nerd and I've poured over all of the papers and the books and listened to the podcast, so I will highlight for you a framework that I have found to be the most helpful in case it's something that you want to explore more as well. And that is Dr. Dan Siegel's window of tolerance. As it says on the tin, imagine a window. Inside the window, we feel comfortable and safe, and imagine we're warm and just protected from the outside elements. But outside that window, we go into hyper arousal. Think yelling, fidgeting, anger, potentially even physical outbursts of frustration. Or we can go into hypo arousal. So the first one, hyper, fighting, anger, outbursts. Second one, hypo arousal. That's the shutdown mode. That's the sullen, sulking, mute, numbness. In neuroscience, we would call it the freeze state. Now, here's the important part. Every person and every child's window looks different. Everyone has a different size of window. Some are narrow, and this means that the child gets overwhelmed incredibly easy. They can only bring in as much light or show as much as they can because it's very, very narrow. And some have bigger windows. But remember that everything from sleep and what they've eaten and the temperature outside and maybe even just having a hard day at school can change the size and shape of these windows, which makes your job so much more difficult because instead of saying, oh, my child has this beautiful window, and you know how that works, and you know what fits in there, and you know what it looks like on the outside, and you can plan for it, those windows, they keep changing. Those windows change very quickly, which means that you need to be aware that even just a hard day at school can be an indication that their window of tolerance has shrunk. And so how can this help us? It really doesn't help us in terms of solving anything. But what it does do is it helps provide a feedback loop because at the moment, your child may not have the capacity or self-awareness to know like, oh, I've had very little sleep yesterday and I didn't really eat my lunch as much as I could have or as much as I should have. And I had this argument and, so I feel like my stress tolerance is a little bit low right now. They're not going to be able to say and communicate that to you. So that window of tolerance is there as a tool for you, the parent, the carer, the educator, to understand where that child is so you can start discussing with them what they might need or addressing how you noticed that their window is a little bit more narrow or how they didn't seem to have as much resilience as they normally would, and talk to them. Use it as a dad joke here, as an opening, as a window to discuss how their day has been. Oh, but please do remember that it's not in the moment that we start those conversations, right? When the storm is a brewing, we do not open that door. We keep the door closed, we wait for the storm to pass, and then when the rainbow is out and we're feeling nice and bright, that's when we can start discussing and digging into these feelings. Okay, friends, I want to get to know you a little bit more. Make sure you drop it into our comment if you're watching this on YouTube. Hi, hello. If you're listening to it on any of the podcast providers, make sure you drop me a message. How does your body normally react to stress? You tend to go into fight, flight, or freeze. Now remember, fight is when we become more outbursty. We become more angry and frustrated, and we may even physically throw things or move with power in a space. Flight is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. That is when we decide just to remove ourselves from the situation. Your kid's crying? Oh, I gotta go stir the pasta sauce. The baby won't stop crying. Do you mind just watching her while I just go grab myself a coffee? All of these things of removing yourself from the scenario would be your nervous system's reaction to stress, which is to flight. The opposite, or the third one, is to freeze. So if someone is yelling, or the dog is barking, or something is really overstimulating or stressful, or you're in a boardroom meeting and someone calls on your name and you don't have any idea where the room even is because everything is just gone from your brain, that is your freeze mode. So do a little bit of reflection here for me. Pause this if you need to, but decide for yourself, what does your nervous system typically go towards? Fight, flight, or freeze? Understanding this is really important in co-regulating your child because it is a pattern and it typically shows up with your child present, which means that they could be learning from you, which isn't as bad as it sounds, because if you start to get tools that support your nervous system deregulation process, then you're also going to be the person who can model the toolbox and the tools they can use themselves. All right, friends, it is time to get stuck in and open that toolbox. What are the things that we can actually do to help support yourself and your child to better regulate? So what I'm going to share with you is science-backed, it is tutor-tested, and parent-approved. These are ways to build emotional regulation into your home. Because yes, this is a home approach, because remember, regulate, they need to be able to co-regulate, which means they need a strong model to be able to do that. And that model, that's you, my friend. So what does it mean to co-regulate? Essentially, they're going to be borrowing your nervous system. I've said it a couple times before we go into a conversation, take a deep breath. Center and ground yourself. Take on your calm, not their chaos. And the reason why I say that is because it's emotional regulation. Your calm is what we need to present to the child so that way they can match your energy, not the other way around. And while this might sound a little intimidating or like there's a little bit of pressure, it's actually really quite powerful. It's silent, grounded power. Now, I don't know about you, but in my family, we either had stonewalling or tears. And so I didn't really grow up with a lot of examples of what calm looks like. I had to do some research myself, and I'm going to share them with you in case you, like me, don't really have a strong understanding of what this looks like and how you can model it for your child. First, lower yourself down to their eye level. Instead of facing them face on, maybe come to the side of them. It's a little less intimidating. Breathe out through your mouth, kind of like you're blowing on hot soup or this hot coffee. Show them how to regulate their breath. I don't know why, I always close my eyes. Could be helpful. If your child is actively aroused, so they are in fight or flight, here are a couple of other tools that you have at your disposal now. Repeating to them, I'm here, you're safe, we can get through this together. I'm here, you're safe, we can get through this together. If they've shut down or frozen completely, you could say, I see you. I'm going to sit down beside you until you feel ready. I see you. I'm going to sit down beside you until you feel ready. These words and how you say them, they are regulation. We don't need to fix anything yet. Your presence alone is the intervention. If you didn't have a chance to listen to episode 3 of the Mindful Toolbox, we dove into anxiety and what it all is. In that episode, we talked about the amygdala, the guard dog, and how we can't make good decisions or recall important information if our guard dog is barking, if that amygdala is aroused. So the first thing we have to do is to calm that guard dog down. What you're doing when you're saying those validating and compassionate words is calming that guard dog down first. Number 2, anchor with rhythm. Predictability calms the brain down. It likes a loop that it can finish. And so whether it's by rubbing their back in a similar pattern, or a gentle hum, or maybe even going for a walk together, these rhythmic cues tell the body you are not in danger. There's predictability around us. Now, of course, all children, just like all adults, will have their own level of comfort for this. Some will not like being touched when they're in a state of high arousal. And some might find the additional noise of a hum very triggering or overwhelming. So in the rainbow, beautiful, storm already past scene, when you have them in a normal dinner, chat to them. When you're upset, would you like it if I rubbed your back? I know that I prefer if someone plays with my hair, or I know that I like being able to draw in someone's hand when I'm talking to them about something that feels difficult. Give them options, because when we feel understood and seen by our carers, we're able to borrow their confidence and their regulation to do it for ourselves in the future. I just remembered one of my other favorite ones that we can do, especially for working with students who are leaning more towards the fight nervous system response, and that is by doing dinosaur stomps. Now, it's really important that whatever action you choose to do with your child, you do it together. So if we're going to do dinosaur stomps, it's not having the child stomp around doing dinosaur stomps. Instead, it's by getting up and doing it with them. When we match someone's intensity of an emotion and help to slow it down, then we've taken control of that energy and they have borrowed from your calm. Okay, number 3. The next tip that you can do to embed regulation into your home life is to create a corner for calm. Put the kid in the corner? No. Well, this is not a timeout scenario. Instead, it's like a time in scenario. It's a cozy space that they have access to tactile, cozy blankets and pillows and maybe some of their favorite stuffed toys, and there might be coloring available. Maybe there's a lava lamp that you can plug in, a journal, a weighted blanket, whatever you and your child think should go in that cozy corner. Essentially, it's a safe place for them to go after they've had a really big wave. Because just like a surfer, after you've been out at sea, riding these really big waves, you're going to be exhausted. And if you and I are tired after a real good cry, you can bet your bottom dollar that your child is as well. So get them a really beautiful space that's not their bed, that allows them to feel soothed and comfortable and to kind of reconnect to their body. It's not an escape for them to go to just doodle and draw and kind of disconnect. Instead, it's where they go in order to feel safe. Okay, we are back for round 2. So if you notice in the video, things are set up a little bit differently. That's because we had some technology issues, but this is a podcast about dealing with anxiety and resilience, so we crack on and we move forward. Let's move on to number 4, the 4th thing that you can do today in your home to help support your child with emotional regulation, and that is teaching explicitly about emotions. The thing is, what we've been talking about the most is how behavior is an indication for something that's underlining that your child may not have the vocabulary for. So this is where that vocabulary practice comes into play. This is why it's so important. When we explicitly teach something, then we're giving our children the tools to start advocating for themselves and use that information. So we don't do it through correction. A lot of the times we encourage doing it through modeling and connection. And the way that we do that is by outwardly stating what we see our children feeling and experiencing. You can start by saying something like, I've noticed that when you talk to me about tryouts, your fists climb up quite tightly. That tells me that you might be feeling a little bit anxious or frustrated. Do you want to unpick that with me? Do you think maybe your body is trying to tell you that you're upset, that you're mad? Another really powerful thing that you can do is to use pictures and stills from movies to analyze and pick apart and have conversations about what you're seeing. So if we grab a movie that they're already familiar with, if we watch it without the sound and we pause it at certain parts and we can say, what do you think this person is feeling? I'm going to use Frozen because one of my students, their school is doing Frozen in their play, and so it's just top of mind. But if we paused it and we said, looking at Anna, what do you think she's feeling right now? And you can have a conversation about the body language, about the facial expressions. And then if we put the sound on, how does her voice change as she's speaking? Can that help give us a clue as to what she's feeling? So not only does going through a picture book and analyzing it, or listening and watching TV shows and chatting about it help them become more aware of what their peers or what other people in their life might be feeling, but it's also really helpful for them when they start reflecting on their own body and how their own body presents specific emotions. But let's make sure that we don't shy away from getting really specific with what we are naming. So it's not just, oh, she looks upset. Like, what does that upset look like? Is it upset disappointment, upset shame, upset frustration or anger? Let's make sure we give the vocabulary. And because it's such an extensive vocabulary, there's so many feelings. So let's talk about the nuances between frustration and anger, and sadness and depression, and anxiety and nerves. Let's get kind of caught up in the nuances of these things, and it will help to expand your child's vocabulary immensely, which in the long run makes them better individuals to connect with their peers and better writers. And lastly, let us look at number 5, which is to model out loud your own emotional regulation. This is big. At the beginning of the episode, I mentioned that you don't have to have this Zen-like Buddha calmness in order to help your child regulate, or to even be a good model for your child for emotional regulation. In fact, they need to see you riding those waves. They need to see you frustrated and upset and sad and disappointed. Because when they see people that they love feel those emotions and handle them effectively or to the best of our ability, then we're giving them the freedom and the green light to not be afraid of emotion. We don't want our children to ever feel fearful of anger or sadness, because then we repress it. And what happens when we repress something? It comes back 10 times stronger. So instead, we need to show them that we feel it, we name it, we let it sit, and then we choose something different. So one of the ways that you can do that is if you get home and the house is really loud and there's a mess and you have to start dinner and stuff, and you can start feeling your own body start to get stressed or overstimulated. It's okay, it's encouraged. I'm giving you permission out loud to say, you know what, I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed right now, or a little frazzled right now. I'm going to go into the lounge and just take 3 nice big deep breaths. You don't even have to say it to your child. Just practice saying it out loud. They'll hear it, they may not clock it, but they might. And the more that it happens and it becomes a family ritual, you'll start to see they're going to start saying these self-regulatory statements out loud. The amount of emails that I have received where parents have said, it was the oddest thing. I was sitting in the lounge with them, and there was 2 siblings. This is one of my favorite stories. There's 2 siblings, they were playing, and one of them was getting really upset with the other. And the one that was getting upset was the youngest. And she kind of just threw her pencil down. So I looked up, the parent, she looked up, And she said she didn't jump in right away though. She just kind of watched what would happen. So the little girl threw her pencil down, stood up and said, I'm gonna go take deep breaths. And then stormed off and went and took deep breaths. And when she came back in, she sat across from her sister and she said, I didn't like when you blah, 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 blah. Now, it's not perfect, but what a win. What a win. Instead of something escalating and as the parent, you feeling like you need to play referee. That's what my parents used to always say. We're not playing referee between you and your sister. You need to figure it out. So instead of having that pressure on you as the parent to kind of always mitigate fights, giving them these tools will create a dynamic within the family where they feel empowered to regulate themselves and then talk about their emotions with their siblings, which is a beautiful thing. It's a win-win for everybody. There's this vibe, especially on social media. If you're not following intentional parenting and carer accounts, there's this underlining pressure, whether it's intentional or not. We receive that we need to be perfect. We can't make mistakes, especially in front of our children. But that's so far from the truth. We need to normalize being able to have and feel these really big emotions. It's what we do with them. So it's totally okay to go up to your child after you've flipped your own lid and you go back to them and you say, you know what? I was really snappy right now. And I'm feeling a little ashamed with how I handled that emotion. I'm really sorry. What I've done, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go take a couple of minutes to myself, and then I'm going to come back to you. But I want you to know that I love you, and I'm really sorry for how I presented my feelings to you. How wonderful would that have been to have been on the receiving side of that from your parent growing up? I know that to me, that would have been such a beautiful thing to have my parent come and acknowledge how they spoke to me and apologize for how they reacted when their feelings became really overwhelming and big. It's not that I never wanted them to shout or be upset or to show that emotion. It's that I wanted them to take ownership of how that emotion created a dynamic where it didn't then feel safe for me to have emotion. And so when we see these beautiful aha moments, that's when we can start to look at how we want to change things and show up for our own children. And I think this is a really empowering one. So it's not by any means a weakness to have emotion. I want to make that very clear. All emotions are so important and we need to express them all. It's how we take ownership of them. Okay, I have a bonus tip for you as well. Oh, sorry. I shared with you 5 really big and empowering ways that you can bring emotional regulation into your home life. And I have got one more. And this one is micro moments. Especially as a busy parent, some of these might feel a little bit too far out of reach. And as I said at the beginning, and as I continue, and I will continue to remind you, this is never about grabbing all of the tools and diving in and doing them all. It's about picking the ones intentionally that you think will serve your family. And if all 5 of these still feel a little bit far out of reach, that's totally okay. And this bonus tip, this one is for you. This is all about those micro moments. Can you nod and smile at your child when they've done something that took charge of their emotion? Can you whisper to them, I'm here? Can you make sure you keep eye contact with them or lower yourself to their level when you speak to them? There's small little ways that we can show up in the exact same way that we're going to already, but just tweaked with a couple of things in mind about energy and about how they need to borrow from our calm instead of us taking on their chaos. The thing is, right, every single one of these micro moments, they add up. And they become a thread in what becomes your child's safety net. It sounds like so little to just smile or nod or hold a breath or practice a breath with your child, but all of those little moments, they add up. So don't overlook them. And I know you don't, that's why you're here. So if you have stuck with me this long and you've heard our 5 tips and the bonus, and you're thinking to yourself, well, these all sound great, but but I have no idea where to start. Don't worry, I see you. I get like that as well. There's so many ideas buzzing in my head, or so many thoughts running through my head. I'm like, oh, I could do this, or I could do that. Let's pause for a second, and I'm gonna invite you on a small thing that you can do, a starting point, if you will. I would love for you to start a calm corner in your house. It's an invitation to start welcoming in the little shifts of regulation within that family dynamic, within your family home. And one of the best ways to do it is through physically setting up a space that feels cozy and warm and calming, to help your child remember that after they go through riding that wave of emotion, they can come back to this corner and just reconnect to the safety of their body through breathing, through coloring, through journaling, through just kind of having a moment to pet something fuzzy or like a really nice tactile blanket or pillow. And remember, it's not an escape, it's a place for them to reconnect to feeling good and safe and strong in their body. So I would love to encourage you and invite you to create that within your home, even if it's just grabbing a blanket and having like it hung over a space, and you just tell your children, look, this blanket, if you want, this is our special calming blanket, and if I see you around with it, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to come over and give you a little cuddle? Or do you want me to come on and put on your favorite song? Like, what kind of indicator do you want this, you being in this space, to be to me? What can I do when you go into that space? It's a beautiful conversation piece, and something that I would encourage for you to do this week, maybe perhaps at your family meeting. Okay, and if you're following along and you're nodding, like you're here with me, we are eye to eye, you're like, yes, I see and hear everything you're saying. But Sarah Lynn, I've been trying to do this, and I think I've been doing it wrong. I think I've been doing it all wrong. Lean in for a second. You're not. But Sarah Lynn, you don't even know what I'm doing. Yeah, but you're trying. Showing up and helping to co-regulate your child is about your presence. It's about you being there. That's the first step. You're allowing them to borrow from your calm, your regulated nervous system. And if you are starting with that, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not one of the 5 things that we listed off, I know, I have so much confidence that how you are showing up for your child is making the difference and helping them regulate themselves. But if you're sitting there and you're on the edge of your seat with a yeah, but, it's okay. Head over to our show notes because I've got you covered. I've created a free resource called Common Missteps in Emotional Regulation and What to Do Instead. It's really short. It's super simple. It's basically a guide for parents, and it's available to anyone in our newsletter. So if you're still sitting there with a yeah but in the back of your mind, or an oh no, I'm not quite sure if I'm doing it right, head over to our show notes, click the link, join that newsletter, get access to this free guide, read through it, and guess what? If you're still not sure at the end of it, please feel free to message in our DMs. I've said it before and I will repeat it until the cows come home. I love hearing from you. Your feedback, your questions, and your honesty, and your ability and kindness to welcome me into your space and into your journey is what allows me to better navigate what goes on this podcast and what we need to share and the tools we need to dive into a little bit more. I want this to be worth your time and something that you feel like you're getting the best information from. So if there's something that's missing, pop into my DMs. I read absolutely everything and respond to it, and I promise we will get an answer to you. And you know what? It may not even be an answer that I can give you, but we have phenomenal speakers and resources that we can pull from and connect you with. Okay, let's wrap this up for this week. If you take away one thing from this entire time that we spent together, let it be this. Emotional regulation is a skill built through relationships. Emotional regulation is a skill built through relationships. When a child feels safe, seen, and heard through every version of them, when they're little angels and you're so blessed to have such beautiful children, or when they're little tyrants and you are wondering how quickly you can pack your bag and flee town, no matter which way they show up, when they feel seen, safe, and heard, that is when they will start to emotionally mature, emotionally regulate, because their brains will start to wire for resilience. The thing is, over the last 5 years or so, emotional regulation has come up to be quite a buzzword, but I'm sure there's so many other people that will echo this. It's not a parenting trend. This is neurobiology. Whether you're looking at it from the perspective of a researcher or the perspective of a therapist, they use words like a secure attachment, like emotional regulation and co-regulation. But in layman's terms, what it actually means is that your child knows that when they are with you, they can be fully themselves. All of the different spectrums of them, they can show up. And they know that they are still loved. And it's because of that safety that they're able to return to calm. And over time, as they grow, as they develop, this internal voice that you are modeling for them gets louder and stronger. And they begin to tell themselves, this is a feeling. I am riding a wave. It doesn't have to last. This is a feeling. It's neither good nor bad, and I am not a bad person for experiencing this feeling. I feel stuck, or I crashed hard in this feeling, but I know what to do next to help me move forward. And that, my friends, does not come from perfection. That comes from practice. So a gentle reminder, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, but I've yelled at my children, I've thrown things in front of them, I've absolutely froze in front of them. That is a very human thing to have done. And you're not broken, you're not wrong, you are human. And it's not how we can look back at what we've done and feel shame and frustration and worry. Feel all of them, ride those waves, my friends, but then decide that now you're gonna feel empowered and proud and excited about the fact that you now have 5+ tools that you can use that are at your disposal to tweak things, to improve even marginally in the next time you show up with big emotions of your own. Okay, let's wrap up for this week. Officially wrap up. I think I've already said that. If this episode has resonated with you, we would really love it if you would hit the follow or subscribe button, whether you are watching us on YouTube or you are listening to us on your podcast provider. Having that feedback that we are talking about things that you're interested in and you're keen to continue being part of this community is so powerful, and it will help us to reach more families who will also welcome us into their home. Which leads me to the next gentle request, that if this has been helpful for you or you've had a small takeaway, send this to another family who might need a little bit of support. Until next time, be kind to yourself, and don't forget to meet me on Thursdays with your tea, and I'll bring the tools.